All right, welcome back to this week's episode of the Rip City Roundtable Podcast. I'm your host, Corey Dickman, the shoot first point guard. Apologies for being a day late on this. It was, I'll blame it on the turkey, maybe, just not getting back into the rhythm here with the Blazers. I think part of it, honestly, just had to do with, what we had this season was the cup, right? The NBA Cup. That's what us as fans of the Portland Trailblazers had to look forward to, and our chances of being in contention for the cup, being one of the teams in the elimination round, it's over. And so it's like, it feels like the season's over, so it's a little disheartening. We'll do a recap of the past week, talk about that last cup game and all the crazy scenarios that were still in play potentially for the Blazers to sneak in as a wild card. And then what we have to look forward to as we move to tonight's game against the Utah Jazz that I will be covering. So check out Blazers Edge. You can see my analysis of this riveting game between two stellar franchises this season, the Jazz and the Blazers. But let's recap the week. Last time we talked, the Blazers were coming off a loss against the Pacers, but it was okay. Because, again, all we were looking forward to was the next game against the Kings, which was a cup game, right? We had to beat the Kings. And honestly, we kind of had to slaughter them. Really, we needed to win real big. And the Blazers took care of business, 115-106 against Sacramento. Sacramento doesn't really have any excuses right now. They did not have DeMar DeRozan in that game. But really, their squad is good enough to beat the Blazers with Domantas Sabonis and Fox. And the Kings came out, played well, and then just laid over, and the Blazers just crushed them. Advia had a great game as far as distribution, kind of being that point forward, which is that unlocks so many different things for the Blazers. Jeremy Grant was injured in that game against the Kings. The Blazers go on to win 115-106, but only by 9. The Blazers had a chance to probably win that game by 20. And robbing the last 5-6 minutes just really took the foot off the gas. And you see these good teams that were in contention for the cup just push leads at the end of the game. The Rockets did this to the Blazers in their second cup game that really sealed the Blazers' fate, because the Rockets just put the foot on the throat of the Blazers, ended up winning that game by 30, which helped the point differential, right? And if you're not been following the NBA Cup, point differential matters big time. So anyway, the Blazers beat the Kings, and then the next game out against the Mavericks, not a cup game. So it was like, well, we'll see. Luka Doncic came back for the Mavericks. Close game, and it was exciting, but the Mavs pulled it out 137-131. But again, that's the kind of game I think that we want as Blazers fans. At least I want. You may have your opinions on winning and losing this season, but that's the kind of game I look forward to, as it's exciting. It comes down to the wire. The Blazers are in it and still lose. So that's what we wanted, but they lose to the Mavericks. Then came down to the infamous Tuesday night. This past week, Tuesday night was the last night of cup games. The Blazers playing the Clippers. The Blazers not only had to beat the Clippers, but they had to smash the Clippers. And as we saw the night unfold, the Mavericks, they needed to lose against the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies were up real big, and the Mavs came all the way back and ended up defeating the Grizzlies, which put them at 3-1, which even if the Blazers had won the game against the Clippers, they would have needed to win by like 60 points. It was to get the point differential to be over the Mavericks for the wild card berth. So it didn't happen. There's a sliver of hope, and that's really what we can ask for, right? It was exciting up until that last kind of hour of the night. And as Blazers fans, again, that's kind of what we have to look forward to. And so those are good moments, and the players get into it. It feels competitive. The energy is there. Of course, we want to, it always sucks to lose to the Clippers, but the Blazers end up losing. I think when they knew it wasn't possible to get that wild card spot, again, the win, it didn't matter against the Clippers at that point. So they lose 127-105. This lineup, I want to transition from the Cup to now talking about what the rest of this season looks like, because this was kind of that first checkpoint. So the Cup's over, at least contention to be in it for the Blazers. And so you look at the lineup that we had against the Clippers, and this, honestly, this would be the team that we would have if we were going to progress towards potentially trying to get a play-in spot. I think shooting for a 6 seed is probably out of the question. But if we were going to try to contend for 7, 8, 9, or 10, this is probably the lineup, right? Anthony Simons at the point, Shaden at the 2, Tumani at the 3, Grant at the 4, and Ayton at the 5, right? We when Klingon was healthy and playing and he was starting, that was exciting. That looked great. Scoot had some of his moments in the starting lineup. But in reality, this is the team right here. This is the starting 5. And let's go down the list against the Clippers. Tumani had a minus 19. Jeremy Grant, minus 21. Ayton, minus 27. Simons, minus 20. Shaden, minus 13. That is not a starting lineup that is going to get it done. And we got to come to terms. There was a mailbag. I think Dave answered on Blazers Edge Thursday. We're recording this Thursday. So today, basically asking the question, should the Blazers be tanking, right? Like, is Klingon and Scoot really injured? Or is this just a tanking ploy? And our beloved Dave argues that, look, the team is not tanking based on the energy level, the lineups, the minutes, Chauncey and kind of this weird limbo season that he's in. The team is trying, but I'm anxious to see what happens tonight against the Utah Jazz, being Friday night, against two teams that are arguably going for a top 3 pick, right, in the NBA draft. So do the Blazers come out swinging tonight against the Jazz, or do we kind of try to lay down? And I think that'll be really telling as far as the trajectory of the rest of the season, because again, you can't roll out this kind of starting lineup in a game that really matters against a Clipper team that is playing really well, above their expectations, without a guy like Kawhi Leonard. And the team is actually a team, right? James Harden, Norman Powell played really well. He's been having a good season when he's been healthy. And so the Clippers aren't like a terrible squad, but you can't have that kind of performance and a starting lineup that basically has a plus minus of minus 20 average if you're going to try to compete for the rest of the season. So the bench, Jabari, Chris Murray played okay. Advia, like we mentioned, I think his power, he was 3 for 3 from the 3-point line, which is what we wanted to see from Denny, but his superpower is going to be at the 4. And I think it's starting in place of Jeremy Grant. I think it's getting the rest of the team involved. I think that is where we're going to see him shine. And it probably won't be anytime soon, but maybe as the season progresses, maybe after the trade deadline, we'll start to see that rhythm from him. And really the rest of the bench, Delano did his kind of typical Delano game, 14 points, 5-11 from the field. So I think the Clipper game right here, the Blazers are 8-14. This is our 22nd game of the season. This is going to be one of the turning points. When we look back to this season, we're going to say game 22 was the last one, in my opinion, where the Blazers really tried. And now I think tonight against the Jazz, we're going to see, I think, the blueprint for the rest of this season, which is going to be probably a lot of losing. You look at the standings, the Wizards have a vice grip on that worst record, right? They're 2-17. They've only lost 15 in a row, so not terrible. The Pelicans, 4-18. I think if they still get Zion back, and they could be that team. They have a lot of money invested. They would want to push forward to probably get a play-in spot. So I don't think they're going to be hovering at 4-18. Then you got the Jazz. They will be terrible. So they're at 4-17. The Philly, they will get better. They have too much invested, more so than the Pelicans. Philadelphia, it doesn't really do them any good to be 5-15. Charlotte, 6-15. I think they're kind of seeing the writing on the wall. We saw that week from LaMelo Ball a couple weeks back or 2 weeks ago where he just was like dropping 50, 44. Like, I think they can see the makings of a team, but I think Charlotte probably tanks it. I think they hold these guys out. LaMelo is going to have this lingering injury most of the season. Bridges is hurt. I think Bridges ends up sitting for them. So I think Charlotte's going to be down there competing with the Blazers. Then you got the Raptors and then the Blazers, 8-14. So you really got these squads. I say about 5 teams, right? The Wizards, the Jazz, the Hornets, the Raptors, the Blazers. all vying for, they got to get a top 3 pick. You got to walk away from this draft with a top 3 pick. So tonight will be telling, right? The Jazz, you never like losing to the Jazz, but we have to keep the long-term in perspective. We'll see what ends up happening. I want an exciting game. You don't want to see a team roll over, but again, you cannot have a starting lineup of Tumani, Grant, Ayton, Simons, and Sharp play that poorly against a Clippers team in a game that really mattered, and it's going to be the last game that ultimately matters this season. That's just plain and simple what it's going to be. And so we'll see what tonight, how it unfolds. Hope everybody stays healthy. Hope you enjoy the analysis. I'll be watching. I'll be writing. Usually find my 5-6 points after the game. Things that I notice. That again, it's probably going to focus more on development and trying to see a rhythm and a structure with the team moving forward that may not include players like Simons, players like Ayton, players like Grant. I mean, really, 3 guys in the starting lineup here are probably the top 3 trade candidates for the Blazers. So, we'll see what happens tonight. Stick with us, right? Again, it may be frustrating that the losses pile up, but you want to be there when you said, man, I saw this coming. I saw this happening. And then when the Blazers land Cooper Flag, then it's all good. So you're fine. You'll be okay. So stick with us. Don't go anywhere. Follow the team. Stay glued in. Check. Obviously you're listening to this podcast. Maybe you're watching it on YouTube. There's other great content, but stay on Blazers Edge, man. BlazersEdge.com. A lot of good articles. We're pumping out content every day, man. Good stuff with Connor and Brandon and Dave and Adrian. Like, so many good writers. Timmy, we have a great crew, and they're covering all sides of the Trailblazers as we start to get down into the nitty-gritty of this season. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for rolling with me as I was at the desk all by myself today, but we'll have a guest next week, so you don't just have to listen to my voice. Enjoy the week, and as always, it is a great day to be a Blazer.